methods we're still in. So what this debate actually boils down to, it boils down to three aspects. So is it good for economy? Definitely. Is it good for IO? Is ISDS a good thing? We believe that it's a much, much smaller issue than just heard. And is the secrecy a problem? Pretty much no. About this debate, we still think, or we see that as the TTIP is in progress. This means that we are having like a principle debate. It's not about the article here and there, it's rather about the principles. Is having ISDS a good thing? Is it good for economy, and so on. So without further ado, I will go to my first point. I will in total have 2 points. The first one is economy, and the second one I will talk about ISDS because the opposition will bring it out anyway. So first of all, the economy. What we heard before also, and what we kind of feel is that the EU and the US economies are getting actually smaller, and the problem is that kind of all around the world we see that actually we have kind of this power struggle between different kinds of economies. And the problem here is that if we don't act fast, so if we don't find partners, if we can't be active in the economy, then something bad might happen, right? And as we see that the EU is not doing so well as we would presume, then this is like a reasonable kind of step. Even more, like if we kind of start to think about the US and EU, then we see that we have, on both sides, we have lots of people. It doesn't really matter if we have the same values or not. It's rather about the question that with the products which we will use are pretty much the same. But the problem here is that we have lots of tariffs, we have lots of unnecessary regulations. It's very hard to get your BMWs and Ferraris to the US, right? Which pretty much means that it's very, very hard for even for different kinds of companies to actually do any kind of trade in the US and in the EU at the same time. So what we see here is that kind of at the moment what the companies have to do, they kind of have to reduce the impact of all these regulations they have. They have to think about how to get rid of the bureaucracy, how to have the complex supply chains, how to minimize stuff, how to get your workers from the EU to the US. It's extremely hard because the waste regulations are just extremely complex. Which means that all the companies actually have to think about how to get over this kind of stupid regulations, not about how to create better products, right? How to kind of trade in this big economy. And this means that it's even if it's a problem like for big companies, then for small companies it's impossible. So you have like local startups going to the US. This is pretty much extremely hard. You just have to move there. If you get a visa, then maybe you can succeed. So what we see here is that if we have these regulations which are now kind of relaxed, this kind of gives a lot of free trade because it's just easier. Kind of intuitively, you see that if there are less regulations, then it's much easier for companies to trade between these countries, right? Even more, like in the end, what we see is that if we kind of increase exports, and actually this is something which is much more important for the EU than for the US. We are all using Macintoshes, we are all using, I don't know, Apple iPhones, but the thing is that people in the US use much less EU products. And actually this gives us a very good chance to send our products there and actually to export some. So actually what we see here is it's extremely good for the EU and then of course to Finland and Korea and them. And now logically comes from here that if we have more exports, if we produce more stuff, then this pretty much means that we have more jobs, we have more money, and if we have more money, this means that kind of the average standard of living is better. Right, and now to the elephant in the room. Let's go to the ISDS. So the thing here is that it's not something magical. It's something which has been in very, very many trade agreements already, like in NAFTA, CETA, and so on. And actually, this is kind of a control mechanism. And as we heard, like the thing is that investors need protection. Even if we try to say that kind of they are big, then kind of if we look people to stuff equally, then it doesn't matter that they are big. Even more, like if you have smaller investors, then they are even more afraid of actually investing to any of those countries because they don't have any kind of protection right. And then we heard that there have been like 250 cases for the companies. What we didn't hear is that there are like in total 600 cases of that, of which 40% actually are for the companies, 40% or 30% of the settlements are for the governments, and actually there are 30 which are kind of still unsettled. Which pretty much means that actually there hasn't been a very, very strong bias towards the companies, and actually this is actually a less problem than it seems to be. So, like in 50 years, if we have 600 cases, less than 10 cases per year all over the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't be misled by the fear, doubt, and uncertainty, which will be kind of trying to push upon you from the opposition and not from the government.